Are you overwhelmed by how many camera options are out there? In this video, I'm going to outline my simple criteria for deciding what camera gear to buy so you can confidently choose the best camera equipment for your photography goals. As a professional photographer since 2011, I've owned and used a lot of cameras. My goal is to share that experience with you so your next camera purchase is a success. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It's a small way you can say thanks. All right, we're going to talk through criteria for cameras, lenses, and accessories. And then stick around to the end because I have a helpful tool that I think a lot of you will find useful. Before we talk about the specific features of different cameras, let's talk through some of the big picture decisions. The first and most obvious factor when you're choosing camera gear, cost. We'll talk through this for pros and hobbyists. For professionals, cost can be evaluated in terms of return on investment or ROI. What camera is going to give the ability to make the most money for the least cost? Make sure to watch Brenda's video on how to set a budget for your photography gear. That will help you come into this with an idea of what you can afford. Pro tip, don't buy $50,000 worth of camera gear before you have any clients. This will put you out of business in a hurry. Also, don't expect to get a $50,000 job with $500 worth of camera gear. There's a balance and a slow growth to acquiring cameras. Renting gear for a job is better than spending a ton without any work. Time and ease of use is also an important factor for ROI. If a camera is super slow and never gets the shot because the autofocus is so bad, you're going to lose money or not get hired again. Get the right gear for the right price. If this is just a hobby for you, it's harder to evaluate. Should you set your budget at $500, $5,000? I think it comes down to what you can afford and what's realistic in your financial situation. Cameras are essentially toys for big kids. So set a budget, pay cash, and don't get gear acquisition syndrome. Having limitations often promotes creativity, whereas a truckload of camera gear will make you feel overwhelmed if you take it out on a shoot. You need to choose gear based on the type of photography you shoot. You'll need to determine what types of photography you want to do because that can have a big impact on your equipment. Whether you're a commercial, wedding, portrait, adventure, or landscape photographer, you're going to be choosing different gear. They all have different photographic equipment needs. While some of the equipment is going to remain the same, you're likely to be choosing different lenses, camera bags, and accessories. To have a successful photography business, you need to choose your equipment wisely. The first item you're going to want to select is a camera brand. The majority of people will be looking at either Sony, Canon, or Nikon. There's other brands, Fuji, Panasonic, Leica, the list goes on, but they're not nearly as mainstream as the top three. Currently, Sony and Canon dominate the market, so they're likely to provide the best value and have the best used market if you're interested in shopping used. Between Canon and Sony, for me, Sony is a clear choice. While Canon has a loyal following and makes awesome cameras, I used them for years, I think Sony is slightly more innovative with their mirrorless cameras, and they have a larger selection of lenses for their mirrorless system. There's also a lot of third-party lenses available from Sigma, Tamron, or Samyang. Next, you're going to want to choose whether you want a full frame or a crop sensor. Some people might consider a crop sensor camera, but I'd encourage most people to look at full frame cameras. Sensor size is a big debate, but my recommendation is to get the nicest full frame camera that fits in your budget. APS-C or crop sensors are fine, but if you take your photography seriously, you'll eventually want to be in a full frame camera. Personally, I'd rather have an older generation full frame camera, which is a little bit cheaper, than the latest and greatest crop sensor camera. The biggest thing about full frame camera bodies is that they have a better lens option or selection. Lenses will be higher quality, you won't have to do any focal length math, which can get confusing, and generally they'll be easier to upgrade when you have a selection of full frame lenses. Next, it's important to separate your needs versus wants. It's often one of the hardest things to do, and the defining characteristic for me is, will the item save me a significant amount of time, effort, or make me money? If the answer is yes, I'll buy it. If the answer isn't clear, I take a hard look to see if I can justify it. Getting your needs and wants straight will save you money and lower your stress level and simplify your life. Talk to any photographer and they will tell you about all the used gear that they've bought over time on a whim and never used. Don't be that person. All right, let's talk about three specific categories of gear: cameras, lenses, and accessories. We'll talk through the ease of use and features and how that incorporates into your buying decision. First up, cameras. There's a lot of features and marketing that gets thrown around when it comes to cameras. There's always a new one being released, and it can be overwhelming to try to decide what's right for you. My criteria falls into two main categories: ease of use and features. With those, there's a variety of factors to consider. So first, ease of use. This comes down to 9 different things that I think are important. First up, size and weight. That's why I switched from DSLR to mirrorless. Number 2, mirrorless viewfinder. You can see a photo before you take a photo. It makes exposure more accurate and saves time editing, so I really look for an electronic viewfinder in a camera. Number 3, buttons, dials, and menu. How user-friendly are the controls? A professional camera will have a dedicated dial for ISO, shutter speed, and aperture, and it makes shooting in manual much faster. Number 4, a flip screen. I like this for vertical shooting, overhead, or low angle. Number 5, autofocus. Basically, any camera from the last 5 years from Sony, Nikon, or Canon is going to be solid. Number 6, customization. Can you set up the buttons and customize it to your needs? Number 7, battery life. Changing batteries is a hassle, so make sure you get something with decent battery life. Also, batteries can be expensive, so having a whole bunch of them can add to your cost. Number 8, compatibility with third-party lenses and flash systems. Are there affordable lenses from Sigma, Tamron that are compatible with your camera system? Or flashes from, say, Godox? Number 9, durability. Will it hold up to abuse, weather, dust, all that sort of stuff? You want to make sure your camera is going to last. Beyond the 9 factors that I just listed that contribute to the ease of use of a camera, it's important to have some features that will really make your camera perform. First up is image quality. That's dynamic range, megapixel count, and low light performance, as well as color. Number 2, in-body image stabilization. Super helpful for video and getting sharp images at lower shutter speeds. Number 3, dual card slots. Arguably more important for professionals than hobbyists, but having a backup of your images is really helpful. Number 4, video specs. This is a whole category on its own, but if you do end up shooting photo and video, as most photographers do, it's important to have some decent video specs in your photo camera. So those 4 things wrap up what I think are important features to look for in your cameras. When it comes to lenses, I'm basically balancing cost with performance. With lenses, performance means image quality. Can I get above a certain threshold of image quality while sticking to my budget? There's a lot of mid-range lenses for Sony E-mount that provide a solid balance of price and quality. I've reviewed quite a few of them on this channel. Sure, you can get the top of the line option. When we were switching from DSLR to mirrorless several years ago, Canon didn't have many lenses and they were very expensive. In terms of image quality, the main things you want to look for when choosing a lens are making sure it performs well in terms of having solid build quality, good sharpness, fast autofocus, compact size and weight, a fast aperture, f2.8 or f4 for zooms, f1.8 or faster for primes. Number 6, minimizing vignetting. You don't want a heavy vignette on your images. Number 7, minimizing color fringing or aberration. And number 8, beautiful bokeh. If you haven't already, check out this video on bokeh. All right, so those are my criteria for choosing lenses. Let's talk accessories. When it comes to choosing camera accessories, the key is to find affordable gear, not cheap gear. Affordable items are low in price, but good in quality. Cheap gear breaks easily and costs you more because you have to buy it twice. There's a ton of camera accessories out there, but some of the main things to consider and be decisive about when you make selections are SD cards. Don't cheap out, go with a reputable brand. Batteries, I usually stick to the manufacturer's brand batteries because they last longer. With a tripod, the expensive ones are nice, but you can get away with a cheap one, and I did so for many years. A backpack. If you carry it a lot, a nice one is great. Budget options can also work too, but they won't last as long. They tend to get worn out and will eventually fail you. All right, camera strap. Get something that's solid. Removable straps are really nice. I like those. With off-camera flash, I like Godox. They have a good balance of price and quality, and there's tons of other options to consider too, so have a look. With filters, I would say don't cheap out. They last a while if you take care of them. For a cleaning kit, as long as you get something that cleans your camera, that's fine by me. The list of gear is seemingly endless, but the main thing to balance is quality and price. I typically subscribe to the you get what you pay for analogy, but sometimes camera gear is all hype and not as awesome as it looks. To help cut through the noise, I've included a link to our money and gear guide, which will help you decide what things are worth the money and what you can save on. My hope is that in this video, I helped you define some of the criteria to make choosing your next camera, lens, or accessory a little easier. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out. And lastly, if you have any questions about a specific item or piece of gear that you're considering, leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you with my thoughts. Now that you know what to look for when choosing camera gear, check out this video about setting a budget for your photography gear. See you over there.